Canada is often described as a land of balance. Balanced cities, balanced opportunities, a balanced quality of life. That idea sounds comforting, but it's mostly wrong. Because when you zoom out and look honestly, two cities broke away from the pack. Not quietly, not accidentally, but decisively. Toronto and Vancouver didn't just grow, they absorbed power. While the rest of the country expanded sideways, these two cities moved upward: faster money, faster migration, faster decisions. And once that momentum started, it never slowed down. This is the story of how that happened. On paper, Canada has many strong urban centres: Calgary, Montreal, Ottawa, Edmonton, Winnipeg. Each has infrastructure, it has universities, each has talent. But cities don't compete on paper. They compete on gravity, the ability to pull people, capital, and attention toward themselves. Toronto and Vancouver developed that gravity early, and once gravity exists, everything else follows. Let's start with Toronto. It didn't become powerful because it was beautiful. It became powerful because it was useful. By the late 20th century, Toronto had quietly positioned itself as the country's financial nervous system. Banks clustered there. Corporate headquarters followed. Media companies set up shop. Legal power centralized. This wasn't an accident. Governments like predictability. Corporations like proximity. And immigrants like opportunity density. Toronto offered all three. When newcomers arrived, they weren't choosing Toronto because it was cheaper or calmer. They chose it because everything important was already there: the jobs, the networks, the systems, the leverage. Once enough people arrive for opportunity, opportunity stops spreading outward, it concentrates. Toronto crossed that threshold earlier than anyone else. Vancouver's rise followed a different logic, but it reached the same outcome. Geography did most of the early work. As Canada's Pacific gateway, Vancouver became the bridge between North America and Asia. Trade routes, shipping, and later, international capital flowed through its ports. Film and media followed. Real estate investment exploded. But the real accelerator wasn't just trade. It was perception. Vancouver sold a lifestyle image to the world: clean, coastal, global, modern. That image attracted money that didn't need local jobs, students, foreign buyers, and global professionals. Parlo. Unlike Toronto, Vancouver didn't need to become Canada's control centre. It became Canada's international showroom. And showrooms attract capital much faster than factories ever do. Now, here's the part most people avoid saying out loud. Immigration did not distribute evenly across Canada. It stacked. Early immigrants settled in Toronto and Vancouver. Then their families followed. Then their communities grew. Then services, language networks, and job pipelines formed around them. At that point, new immigrants weren't making a completely free choice. They were following an infrastructure already built by people like them. That's not discrimination. That's just human behavior. Toronto and Vancouver became the default settings. Other cities became alternatives. And in the game of urban growth, alternatives rarely win. There's another uncomfortable truth. Cities don't grow on quality of life alone. They grow on visibility. Toronto and Vancouver appeared in movies, news, business rankings, and social media feeds over and over again. To the outside world, Canada began to look like just two cities with a large countryside attached. Investment follows familiarity. Talent follows reputation. Meanwhile, cities with strong fundamentals but weak branding stayed invisible. Being good is not enough. You have to be seen being good. This brings us to the point of no return. Once a city passes a certain size and influence, its growth becomes self-sustaining. More companies attract more workers. More workers justify more infrastructure. More infrastructure attracts more companies. It's a feedback loop. It's not fair. But it's how urban systems behave. Toronto and Vancouver crossed that line years ago. Other Canadian cities hesitated, diversified too late, marketed themselves poorly, or relied on single industries and just hoped stability would be enough. It wasn't. So, the illusion of Canada having many equal cities is just that tan illusion. Skint. What we really have are two dominant urban giants and a collection of other cities working hard to catch up. The story of Toronto and Vancouver isn't just about growth, it's about the relentless, compounding power of momentum. If you found this interesting, consider subscribing for more deep dives like this one. Toronto and Vancouver surged ahead by building gravity, then the rest of Canada didn't fall behind by accident. They made choices. Some were reasonable at the time, others were short-sighted. Together, they created a gap that is now painfully hard to close. This part isn't about blaming cities. It's about understanding where momentum was lost. Mistake number 1. Betting on one industry for too long. The most common error was overconfidence and stability. Take Calgary. For decades, Calgary did exactly what it was built to do. Energy boomed. Jobs paid well. The city expanded fast. And that success became the trap. Oil and gas weren't diversified early enough. When prices fell, the city didn't just lose jobs, it lost confidence. Young talent hesitated. Investors paused. Immigration slowed. Toronto didn't rely on one engine. Vancouver didn't either. Cities that did are still paying the price. Mistake number 2. Confusing livable with competitive. Many Canadian cities focused on being comfortable, calm, and affordable. That sounds smart. It's not enough. Look at Winnipeg. Affordable housing, strong community, decent infrastructure, but almost no international narrative. Global capital doesn't search for nice, it searches for opportunity density. Winnipeg didn't fail, it simply didn't compete loudly enough. And silence doesn't attract growth. Mistake number 3. Weak branding, even weaker storytelling. Cities underestimate branding because it feels superficial. It's not. Toronto became Canada's business capital. Vancouver became Canada's global city. Other cities never decided what they were. Take Edmonton. Strong public sector, education hub, stable economy. But the image stayed bureaucratic and dull. Young professionals don't migrate towards stable administration. They migrate toward identity. A city without a story becomes forgettable, even if it works. Mistake number 4. Political and language friction. Some cities slowed themselves down internally. Montreal is the clearest example. Culturally rich, creatively powerful, globally admired. But business decisions were often complicated by political uncertainty and language perception. Whether fair or not, companies hesitated. Some headquarters moved, some investments went elsewhere. Toronto didn't have to fight that friction. Vancouver didn't either. Global competition, even small hesitation, costs years. Mistake number 5. Living in Toronto's shadow proximity can help or suffocate. Cities near Toronto often assume spillover growth would save them. It didn't. Hamilton waited too long to reinvent itself. Industrial identity lingered. Urban renewal came late. Talent passed through instead of staying. Being close to a dominant city doesn't guarantee growth. It often means comparison, and comparison is brutal. Toronto didn't share its gravity, it absorbed it. Mistake number 6. Late immigration strategy. Immigration reshaped Canada, but not evenly. Cities that didn't actively position themselves early lost out. Commune. Once communities form, they spill free in force. New immigrants choose familiarity over experimentation. By the time some cities tried to attract newcomers aggressively, the networks were already locked into Toronto and Vancouver. At that stage, incentives don't work. Only time does. And time is expensive. The pattern. No one likes to admit here. The uncomfortable pattern. Cities planned for stability. Toronto and Vancouver planned for dominance. One approach avoids risk. The other wins markets. Canada rewarded caution socially, but growth doesn't care about politeness. Tells a story about itself. But the real story lives in the people who move. They're believing it. Toronto and Vancouver didn't just pull ahead economically. They reshaped what success looks like in Canada and quietly raised the price of chasing it. This is where growth stops being an abstract number and starts becoming deeply personal. 2. For many newcomers, their Canadian journey begins with a single image. A skyline piercing the clouds, a transit map of a sprawling city, a job posting with a familiar, hopeful name. Most don't arrive chasing luxury, they arrive chasing stability. And in the minds of millions, Toronto and Vancouver feel like certainty. Other cities feel like a risk. That perception alone decides the course of countless lives. When people land in Toronto, they don't expect it to be easy. They expect momentum. The belief is simple. If I'm going to struggle, at least I'm struggling in the right place. In Vancouver, the belief is slightly different. If life is this expensive, at least it's beautiful and connected to the world. Both beliefs contain a truth, and both hide a significant cost. This leads to the cost of living trap. High incomes don't automatically mean high freedom. In both cities, rent takes the first bite, and it's a deep one. Transportation takes the second. Taxes take the third. What's left over might look respectable on paper, but it feels thin in reality. People earn more, but they save less, telling themselves this struggle is just temporary. But then, temporary becomes permanent. The trap isn't poverty, it's maintenance. You're not broke, but you can't slow down. You're not failing, but you can't step off the treadmill. That kind of pressure doesn't show up in economic statistics. It shows up in exhaustion. And here's the psychological shift that happens quietly. In smaller cities, success often feels incremental. You build your way up, step by step. But in Toronto and Vancouver, success feels comparative. You're always measuring yourself against someone else who seems to be further ahead. You feel like you're constantly behind schedule. This constant comparison rewires your behavior. Longer hours start to feel normal. Taking time to rest feels irresponsible. And stability, the very thing you might have been chasing, starts to feel like stagnation. People stop asking, "Am I doing well?" Instead, they ask, "Am I keeping up?" And keeping up is a race that has no finish line. These cities offer connection, but not always community. Professional networks exist, support systems exist. But relationships often become transactional more than deep. People are busy building their careers, busy surviving, busy positioning themselves for the next opportunity. Friendships become appointments. You have to schedule weeks in advance. Family time becomes a logistical puzzle. This isn't because people are cold. It's because the environment rewards speed over stillness. Then, there's a quiet pattern that rarely makes headlines. The second migration. Many people don't stay in these cities forever. After 5, 7, maybe 10 years, a new thought appears. Is this actually worth it? Some move outwards to smaller cities, to the suburbs, or to provinces they once ignored. Others stay, not because they truly love it, but because leaving feels like admitting defeat. This isn't failure, it's recalibration. But that recalibration often comes late, after so much of their energy has already been spent. From the outside, Toronto and Vancouver look like the very picture of success. From the inside, many residents feel suspended, never fully settled, never truly done. Progress is real, but so is the fatigue. People delay major life milestones, buying a home, starting a family, achieving long-term financial security. Not because they're irresponsible, but because the entry cost just keeps rising. The city moves forward, and the individual has to run just to keep pace. Cities that lag behind economically often envy Toronto and Vancouver. What they don't see is the trade-off. Growth concentrates opportunity, but it also concentrates pressure. Other cities might lose the national spotlight, but these major hubs absorb an immense amount of stress. Neither outcome is perfect, but only one is visible on Instagram. The quiet truth is this: Toronto and Vancouver didn't just win the economic race, they redefined ambition for a generation. Ambition now means speed, scale, and sacrifice. It doesn't always mean balance. It doesn't mean rest. It doesn't mean enough. And once ambition is redefined in this way, opting out feels like falling behind Devon when it's the healthier, more sustainable choice for you. 2. Have you ever wondered why some cities stay on top forever while others seem to rise and fall? Well, cities don't stay powerful just because they once won. They stay powerful because they adapt faster than the pressure they create. And that's the big question facing Canada right now. For a long time, Toronto and Vancouver have been the undisputed champions. They pulled ahead, absorbed all the growth, and basically defined what ambition looked like in Canada. But being on top creates its own problems. And the next 10 years won't reward the same old playbook that built the last decade. Let's be real. Toronto and Vancouver aren't collapsing. That's just lazy thinking. But they are hitting a wall. Housing isn't just expensive anymore, it's actively stopping people from moving forward. Infrastructure is stretched to its limit. The political appetite for endless growth is shrinking. And residents are speaking up more than ever. Think about it. When a city becomes too expensive to even try something new, innovation slows down. Startups think twice. Young families put their plans on hold. Risk-takers look elsewhere. The cities themselves won't shrink, but their competitive edge will. And that's exactly where the door opens for other cities to step up. Canada doesn't need to build new megacities from scratch. What it needs are smart, adaptive, mid-sized winners. Take Calgary, TAFs, one of the clearest paths forward. It already has affordable housing, at least by big city standards. It has an educated workforce and infrastructure that was built for growth. What Calgary needs now is to be consistent. Its push into new industries won't just be a hobby. It picks up when oil prices are low. Calgary commits for the long haul to things like clean energy, logistics, and AI-related industries. It could become the country's go-to city for opportunity without the insane pressure. But it has to stop waiting for the next oil boom to save it. Then there's Montreal. Montreal has something truly special, a culture that people all over the world love. From AI research and video games to design and film, it's a city that punches way above its economic weight. But its future hinges on one simple thing: clarity. When political and language policies feel uncertain, businesses get nervous and hold back. But if that uncertainty clears up, Montreal could easily become Canada's most cost-effective and creative hub. The talent is already there. It's a decision-making environment that needs to catch up. And we can't forget the quiet climbers. Cities like Ottawa and Waterloo, you won't see them dominating the headlines, but they don't need to. They offer stable jobs, a high concentration of knowledge and talent, and a much lower pressure environment. As remote and hybrid work become the new normal, these cities are perfectly positioned to benefit. They won't explode overnight. They'll grow steadily. And in the long run, steady compounding growth often beats short-term hype. But there's a flip side. Some cities are at risk of a slow decline. They won't collapse in a dramatic fashion. They'll just drift. Places that only have affordability to offer, without a strong identity or new industries, will slowly lose their young talent. It doesn't happen all at once, but quietly. Over time, when ambition leaves the city, it takes a long time to replace it. Decline in Canada is rarely loud. It's a slow, quiet process. So, the rules of the game are changing. The next phase of urban growth in Canada won't just be about who's the biggest, it'll be about who offers the best quality of life. Tolerance for high costs, for soul-crushing commutes, for a frantic pace of life, it's all running thin. Cities that demand everything from their residents without offering flexibility will lose their appeal. And the cities that provide enough opportunity with less of that suffocating pressure will start to win. This brings us to the most important point. The idea of a single best city is dead. Toronto and Vancouver are still powerhouses, but they're no longer the automatic, default choice for everyone. They are high-performance environments, which is great for some people, but it burns others out completely. The future belongs to people who choose their city strategically, not just based on emotion or reputation. People are starting to ask the real questions. Where do my skills actually match the demand? Where is the pressure manageable? Where can I build a life without feeling permanently exhausted? That calculation is becoming more honest and more common. Canada didn't become this unequal by accident, and it won't rebalance by accident either. The balance of power between our cities will shift slowly at first. And then, all at once, the moment enough people decide the trade-offs are no longer worth it. Toronto and Vancouver will always be important anchors for the country, but they won't own the future alone. The next winners won't be the ones shouting the loudest. They'll be the ones quietly absorbing the talent and ambition, just like Toronto once did. Thanks for watching, and if you found this interesting, make sure to subscribe for more.